Alright, so we're going to replace the timing belt on this Fiat engine. This can be done while it's in the car. There's just very little clearance on this side of the engine, and you have to pull like 2 or 3 motor mounts in order to actually get to that. The 3 bolts, those are a mount right there, and those have to be removed in order to get to the timing belt, which is behind this cover over here. One of the first steps, which we've already done a bunch of this stuff, is to remove the top cover here on the engine. You also have to release the fuel pressure. I have a separate video for that. I'll link it in the description. You want to disconnect the negative battery cable. You also want to remove the air cleaner, air filter housing thing on top of the engine. We've already done that as well. And then we've also removed, there's a PCV valve housing thing that is right here. And then these associated hoses, these guys here, these are going to come off next. And then there's a vacuum pump over here that needs to be removed as well. We've already done that on this one. And after you've done the fuel pressure release steps, which is in the separate video I'm linking in the description, then disconnect the fuel line running in here. And there's a fuel vapor return line that connects right here, and this stuff goes to the car. There's hoses that come from the car. And then you've got your actual fuel line coming in right here. That gets disconnected, and then that goes to your fuel rail, which is this guy right here. And you can see one of the fuel injectors right there. Alright, now we need to break out our special tool for the Fiat. This is our timing belt tool stuff here. So this piece right here is what we're going to use first. And this guy goes on where the vacuum pump was on the engine. This goes there, and this is what will help lock everything in and time that engine. This basically holds the camshaft in position and holds it in the perfect timing. And key parts of this, it does have this little dowel pin here, and that is a key aspect that helps set the timing on this thing and keeps the camshaft in the right position. So let's go install this. Alright, so here's where our vacuum pump was. I'm going to go ahead and take this little gasket guy off of here for right now. Alright, so if we look at the camshaft here. Alright, so we're looking at the end of the camshaft here, and you can see there's a little hole right there. That correlates or corresponds to this dowel pin on our timing tool. So this dowel pin goes in that little hole. You can also see there's like a little channel that runs across there, and of course that is for this guy here to go in. I'm going to line all those things up here. Then once we've got this guy in here, then we will rotate this around, and then this gets bolted in. You can see the holes line up right here, here, and here with the holes on here. So that's how it gets set up, and then we bolt that in and it's all locked in. Then our camshaft is timed. And we wanted to get all this stuff set up before we take any tension off that timing belt. Alright, now if I go and stick mine on here, mine needs to rotate some more. So on a crankshaft over here, I'm going to go ahead and rotate this engine around. Try and get that thing aligned. Right about there, bolt this guy in, and then our camshaft is aligned. Alright, and our kit comes with the 6 bolts up here, these little Allen head bolts. These guys are the ones that we want to use to tighten this thing down with. And then you're supposed to torque these down to 15 foot-pounds. Alright, so next on this, if it was in the car, you would raise the car up, put it on blocks, make sure everything is safely secured, and then you would go underneath and remove that plastic belly pan that is underneath the engine. And then there is a tunnel support brace that goes across the bottom as well, and you want to remove that. There's 4 bolts that hold that in. We have it sitting on the floor over here. Then there's a rear engine mount underneath the car. You'd want to disconnect that as well. And then you're going to take off the passenger side front wheel. Take that off completely. And then in the passenger side front wheel well, there's a vertical brace where there's 2 bolts that hold that thing on. You want to remove that as well. And then there's a couple splash shields in there as well that you're going to have to remove some bolts for that. Alright, and then we get to the accessory belt, which is this guy right here that runs along the outside of the engine. We're going to remove this guy as well. To remove the accessory belt, we have to release the tension on this guy, and this is our belt tensioner right here, this whole mechanism, these 2 things. We simply put a wrench on that bolt, put some pressure on that wrench, and rotate this thing over, and then our belt should come off like that, and then we release that pressure. We're good. Alright, now we move to our vibration dampener, which is this guy right here. We have to remove this thing. There are 3 bolts in there. We just want to remove all 3 of those bolts. Alright, now if the engine's in the vehicle, you'd have a coolant bottle over on this side. You have to disconnect that and remove that, sort of push it off to the side. All right, now you'd have to go down on the bottom of the engine, put a jack under there with some blocks of wood and everything to support the bottom of the engine, and then you come up to the top. Over here, there's an engine mount that goes over here. You start disconnecting that guy. There's 3 bolts here, and there's some bolts on the frame of the car as well. And then with that mount removed, now our next step is this upper timing belt cover, this black piece right here. We want to remove this guy. There's a bolt right there, and then there's another bolt over on the side, this guy right here. Remove both of those. And then there is, on the inside here, there's a little clip sort of thing that you need to sort of push this back and then pull it up. And there's also this wire here that runs through the top part up here. So you just sort of pull that off the side. It runs in this little groove on the back side here. All right, next we've got this aluminum engine mount right here. There's 6 bolts on that one. See, there's 4 right there, and there's 2 more over there. Remove all 6 of those bolts and then take that engine mount off. Get a better look at our timing belt. That's that guy right there. All right, now we're going to remove this lower timing belt cover, this plastic piece down here. There's 1 bolt right there. And again, we've got this wire running through a groove on the side here. Now we can see our timing belt in all of its glory. All right, now we're going back to our timing belt kit here, and we're going to get out this guy, and this aligns the crankshaft. We're also going to want these remaining 3 black screws here. Those are going to go on and hold this guy onto the crankshaft. And again, on the crankshaft tool here, you can see there's this little extra hole drilled out there, and that corresponds to, there's an alignment dowel on the actual crankshaft gear there. So those are supposed to line up, fit together, basically just exactly like that. And you also see on this tool, you've got a little spacer on the top there. So this guy is aligned like this. It goes into the engine like that because there's a bit of a gap between the tool and this little stud where this gets threaded into. And we just removed the screw from there. That's what holds the lower timing belt cover on there. All right, so I'm first gonna worry about the stuff on the bottom part here. Get this guy aligned, get that bolted in. All right, and then these 3 bolts get torqued down to 18 foot-pounds. All right, now we have to align this top part up here. You can see on mine it's off slightly. It doesn't quite line up, so I need to move mine over. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and remove the belt at this point and then move this over and get this in alignment and put the bolt in there. So to relieve the tension, we've got this guy up here. This is our belt tensioner, and there's a bolt on there. All right, so similar to what we did on the accessory belt, same sort of deal on this guy, where I literally just unscrew the bolt a little bit and then that relieves the tension on the belt. And now we can take the belt off. Now we can align this guy. Move that over just slightly. Get our bolt in here. I'm using the same bolt that held the cover on. This gets tightened to 80 inch-pounds. Inch-pounds, not foot-pounds, 80 inch-pounds. So now we've got our timing kit installed on both sides. We've got it on the crank side right here, as well as the camshaft side over here. Our engine should be perfectly timed, so to speak, at this point in time. We just need to put a new timing belt on there and replace all of those things we took off. And is there anything wrong with our timing belt? Not visually. There's all the little teeth in here look in good order. Nothing wrong with them, no cracks, none of the teeth are missing, no little chips out of anything. The back side of the belt, no cracks, no splits, nothing. This looks to be a very good belt and a completely usable belt, but preventative maintenance thing, it's a cost-benefit ratio of we got the engine out. This is a thing that needs to be replaced every like 80,000 miles anyways, so do it well. It's an easy job. This is like $60 for a new belt. Well worth it to get it done now. All right, so next I'm going to put the timing belt on here. We're going to install the timing belt. And so we've got our special tool on the crank here, setting the timing on the crank. We've got another special tool on the other side of the camshaft here, setting the timing on the camshaft. Our next thing is to actually loosen the bolt on this camshaft gear and allow that thing to free spin. And then we've got a special tool to do that This is like special tool number 6847 from Fiat, but I made my own. I'm calling it special tool number 7000 because it's even better. So this guy goes in here. This is basically just some 1/8 inch flat bar with some 7/8 inch tubing welded to it and then a little notch cut out here. And this guy goes on here and it fits in to the gear here so that we can hold on to that gear, and then we can loosen this bolt and tighten this bolt as needed as we go along here. So we're going to loosen this guy up. We're going to get the timing belt on here. Then we're going to do the tensioning on this guy here. And on this guy, there's a specific way to do this where we get our belt on here, and then if you can see on the bottom here, there's a little tab right there. We want to bring that tab around to this little notch here, and then we tighten this bolt down. And go ahead and loosen this bolt on this gear here. See how free spinning this really is. Oh, alright. Yeah, it rotates. Alright, new timing belt. Here's our part number. Part number on the timing belt. It's that guy right there. This guy installed on here. We're supposed to do a specific order. Put it on the crankshaft gear first, then over to the water pump, and then up to the camshaft. Trying to make sure I've got good tension over here on this side. Make sure that all my gears are engaged on this thing going all the way around. So with that done, now we should be able to set the tension on this guy. Oh, alright. But what is cool is that this tension now on the belt. Alright, so this may not be as bad coordination wise as I thought, because now that we have this belt here for tension, this thing will kind of move all on its own. And all I need to do is sort of rotate this. I need to get a hold of this plate here on top and rotate that, and then that silver tab will come over all on its own. I don't need to actually touch that thing. Alright, so I think with my bent nose pliers I can make this work. We're going to torque this thing down eventually to 21 foot-pounds. Alright, torqued, set, everything should be set. Here's a look at our tensioner. When it's tensioned properly, you can see that little tab is in that window there, they call it, that little indent. The tab is sitting in that indent, centered in there perfectly. That is what you're looking for. Now we want to go ahead and tighten down this bolt here. We use our special tool that we made, install that, and this gets tightened down to 88 foot-pounds. Alright, so now we're going to take off our special tool here on the crankshaft and our other one on the other side of the camshaft. And then we'll rotate the engine around a couple times, reinstall these special tools, and make sure our timing is perfect. Alright, now we want to rotate our engine. Alright, and one of the things we're doing is making sure the belt is sort of riding in the center of everything where it should be, in the gears like this. And on the crankshaft gear down here, you can see I'm on it, it's centered off to the side a little bit. But you can also tell that the pattern there, that's exactly how it was in the old one. So I'm okay with that. Alright, so now I'm going to go ahead and put those special tools back on the crankshaft and the camshaft and make sure our alignment is where it should be. Either we're lucky or we did a good job because our timing lines up perfectly there on this guy. Timing belt done on this Fiat. We just got to put all of our little plastics back together. Alright, so now I'm going to reinstall our lower timing belt cover. Held in with that one bolt. And this bolt gets tightened down to 80 inch-pounds. Inch-pounds. Alright, and we don't want to forget our wires that run along the side here. They need to get shoved into that little channel on the side of that plastic cover. Alright, now we're reinstalling this lower engine mount here. This guy goes in here, and there's 6 bolts on here. Those get tightened down to 18 foot-pounds. Alright, now we're doing an upper timing belt cover. There are 2 bolts for this guy. Make sure to get your little wire in the channel on the back side of this cover. And the bolts get tightened down to 80 inch-pounds again. Right, next we want to install or reinstall the vibration dampener. You'll see on this guy that there is a little extra hole there that lines up with that same little pin on here that we used before with the special tool. So go ahead and line that up so this locks in there on that pin. and then reinstall our bolts. All right, and those bolts get tightened down to 19 foot-pounds. All right, now I'm going to install the accessory belt around our alternator, around our AC compressor, down around our vibration dampener, and then comes up around our tensioner right here. And we'll try and get our, we'll pull our tensioner back. Get it around the tensioner, and then add the tension on there, and we should be good to go on that accessory belt. All right, now we want to reinstall the right-hand engine mount, and the bolts on that one get torqued to 44 foot-pounds. Then you want to reinstall your coolant bottle, reinstall that brace on the passenger side of the car as well. That vertical brace, the two bolts that hold that on, they get tightened to 33 foot-pounds. Reinstall your front passenger side wheel. And then below the engine on the bottom of the car, there's that brace that goes across that. Tunnel support brace, it's called. That has 4 bolts on it. Those get tightened to 60 foot-pounds. And then you have the brace on the underside of the car, on the back side of the engine there. On mine, it's an automatic transmission, and so that one gets tightened to 96 foot-pounds. The other 2 bolts on the other side of that dog bone, those get tightened to 44 foot-pounds. Then reinstall your plastic belly pan on the bottom of the engine. Reinstall your vapor purge hose and your fuel line. Reinstall the vacuum pump. Reinstall PCV hoses and the PCV housing, oil separator housing, air cleaner, big plastic air cleaner, and then finally the big plastic cover that covers the engine. Of course, reinstall and reconnect the battery, and then start and run the car until it reaches normal operating temperature, and then check the fluid level on the coolant and make sure that is where it's supposed to be as well. The Fiat manual tells us to please note that we may need to do the cam crank variation relearn procedure using the scan tool if there has been any repair replacement to a powertrain system. For example, camshaft and or crankshaft sensors or components. Doesn't tell us specifically that applies to our timing belt, but it might. So you may start throwing some codes on this, and that may be the solution. Just be aware.